I just purchased your Platinum plan, Law Self-Defense Platinum membership. Thank you for having it. Between Rittenhouse and this case, I hope I am never having to use your services. I hope you never have to use my services too, because you're in a bad situation if you're using my services for the most part. Most of the cases I've worked are felony cases. People are looking at 20 years or more in prison. And as I've said 1,000 times, folks, if you're put in front of a jury, there's a 10% chance you get convicted. I don't care how innocent you are. That's just part of the noise in the system. Juries are dangerous and unpredictable creatures. You do not want to be there at all. It's the worst day of your life because no one can guarantee that you don't get convicted. The chance of conviction is never zero. Most of the cases I work, we're fortunate if I prefer to be brought on as early as possible, and usually that's the case within a week or two of the event. And that's where I can have the biggest impact because that's when the prosecution is still thinking about what they want to do with the case. And so we can have a strong influence on their decision-making. Then sometimes people wait too long and they call and the prosecution's already made a full-blown commitment to bring the defendant to trial. And that's tough to change. I have done it. We had a murder case. We were 2 weeks from trial when I was brought on. Well, I was brought on a month out and did my consult and delivered my expert analysis within 2 weeks, and 2 weeks before the murder trial was set to commence, they dismissed the charges. But that's not my preference. That's high risk. that's not the way to go.
They've already got in their mind that you're the bad guy. They've already sunk in cost, time, and effort into this.
Just think how many meetings they've had with their bosses about how well they're going to do in this trial, how much they're looking forward to it. And then 2 weeks ahead, they come in and say, you know, all that money we spent on prep and all the experts we lined up and all this other shit we did, all the scheduling, nah, we don't want to do it. So,
and all that time they're telling the victim's family, like, hey, look, it's a slam dunk. He's going away forever. Well, funny story.
The defendant was a young woman in her early 20s, and her dad was footing the legal bill. And he's the one that insisted I be brought on the case. In fact, he had told the defense attorneys he wanted me on the case when the event first happened. And in fact, he called my office to figure out how to get that arranged. But the defense attorneys didn't want me on the case. That happens sometimes, folks. Defense attorneys feel like, you know, they don't want a strange lawyer coming in. It's too many chefs in the kitchen. It's a common sentiment. And they were telling him, don't worry about it. We have a year before trial. We'll get this settled. We'll make this go away. And then it was a month before trial. And the father said, listen, this isn't working. I want you to get law self-defense on the case, and they finally did. And I can tell you, man, that those lawyers called me. They still didn't want me. They were only doing it because they were being compelled.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they thought they understand criminal law well, but what do they really think of self-defense law? And that was probably something still out of their depth.
Yeah, and frankly, they made a lot less money because they would have got paid a lot of money for that trial, and the trial ended up not happening.
Well, and they could have made more off their retainer if they would have settled early and got it resolved.
They were kind of in the worst position because they'd spent the whole year gearing up for the trial. So that was all
that's sunk cost.
Sunk investment. Speaking of self-defense, all the cases you've covered have been gun-related. Do you also do knife, melee, self-defense work? Yeah, the murder case I was just talking about where we got it dismissed 2 weeks before trial. The young woman was the defendant. She stabbed the guy in the chest with a little knife, a little Spyderco knife. 2.5, 3-inch blade, but it nicked the aorta. And man, I saw the crime scene photos. It looked like someone took a fire hose of blood to that room. Yeah, it was everywhere. So that was a knife self-defense case, and she'd been given the knife by her dad. Her dad had actually paid for her to get some training in how to use a knife in self-defense. But that's what she carried for personal protection. She lived in a state where it would be difficult to get a concealed carry permit, but she had that little Spyderco, and it was kind of a date gone bad situation. And she says the guy was attacking her. She got the knife out. One stab to the chest. That was it. And that was the end of him.
Oh, good on her.
Get fucked.